There we go.
Am I on the main stage here?
Yes, you are. And you can turn your camera on again.
It's on.
Awesome.
Wait,
Just
I
load
don't
up.
know how to fix this.
And we're streaming.
Great. Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to The Spicy Take, a weekly live stream covering the spiciest topics with the spiciest crypto people in crypto. I'm Liz. I'm joined here by my co-hosts, Hammad, the Kerp, and Yaylor. And today we have a couple of very special guest judges. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves? Starting with MP.
Sorry, I was muted. I wasn't lagging this time. So, hi, I'm MP, Maria Paula, and I'm Argentinian, but I live in Berlin. I work at Golem, and I've also founded ETH Berlin, which is one of the main hackathons in the circuit. Not this year, of course, but otherwise.
That's really cool. It's a major event. Thank you for joining us today. And hi, Simona. Want to give a quick intro of yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Simona, currently heading up community at Status, co-founded the Bounties Network and part of quite a few DAOs. A little bit busy. Yeah, excited to chat where our community and culture are heading towards.
Yeah, it's a really important discussion because it's kind of like come for the tech, stay for the community, super important component. And hi, Taylor, how's it going? Want to give a quick intro of yourself?
She's almost there. Just hit the mic button.
Okay.
You're muted.
Hold on.
Maybe it's a setting issue. On a side note,
it might be. Let me check that.
Yeah.
Just refresh and we'll circle back. There you go.
Awesome.
I swear, guys, we're building like the future and we can't even figure out.
It's like, how do I make myself heard on this call?
That's my excuse for missing all family things, right? Like I'm busy like building.
I can't make this work.
We're gonna solve time travel and like space travel before we solve video chat as a species.
So true.
For sure. Yeah, sorry, I was clicking buttons. I have no idea what we're talking about. But I am Taylor. I run my crypto. I've been in this space for a while. I've been in the darkest depths of this space. But I'm still here and I love it. And you know, I think that the main thing is that we always just have to be better, right? And like be aware of the mistakes that we're making, be aware of the things that can be improved, and then fix it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I really enjoyed your portion of the Infant Machine book and reading about your like personal story. And also, side note, I think we're birthday twins. How'd you celebrate your birthday this year?
So I didn't realize like the day that my birthday fell on.
Yeah.
So it was a Wednesday, which is like our all hands day, our ops day. And so I basically just did the normal thing, except that
Are you trying to say you forgot your own birthday?
No, I knew the date. I didn't know the day, so I didn't cancel calls. I just, whatever. But then I got home from Starbucks, which is the only place I go these days because of COVID.
Yeah.
I just go through Starbucks for my daily human interaction. And my team that's here in LA with me were inside my house and scared the bejesus out of me and had a cake, and it was amazing.
It's so cute. That's really, really adorable.
They did a good job.
And you know they care about you. Congregating inside your house during COVID.
Inside my house with an ice cream cake. It was perfect.
That's really cute. Thank you so much, Taylor, for joining us today. So in terms of the show flow for today, we're going to go over our normal segment, which is something we call the spicy tweet. And we unpack an interesting tweet from the crypto community in the previous week. And then we'll move on to our main segment, where we talk about culture within the decentralized community today. What's going well? What are things that could be improved upon? How do we foster the sense of community during the time of COVID? So without further ado, let's move into the first part, the spicy tweet. So the spicy tweet is one from Chef Nomi from Sushi Swap, apologizing for everything that's happened with Sushi Swap and apologizing for being greedy, afraid, making bad, controversial decisions. So what do you all think of this sort of like recapitulation? Do you think that it's like a function of him bowing to like community demand, or do you think it's like a genuine action? Like what kind of lessons can we extrapolate from what happened with Sushi Swap for future decentralized projects?
So I think it's actually lawyers' advice. I think they're trying to
sounds very true.
They actually doxed him, and like apparently, he belongs to a project in the space that's actually quite well known. So that reads to me like a lawyer getting in the court. But I'm a skeptical. Maybe he's nice. After fool me once.
Oh, MP, I think you may have, I don't know if it was my connection. I think you may have frozen there for a second.
Yeah, I lost the last segment of that.
Yeah, so you said fool me once.
Oh, it's fool me twice, like you're not going to fool me twice, basically.
The old mantra, right? I feel like a lot of us are much more kind of like fool me once, like don't I'm just blocking you forever, right? Like we're a little bit more privacy security focused. We see things happen and they collapse. But I'm definitely going to go with MP and say that I feel like that was definitely like some backtracking that was stemmed from fear of being doxxed, basically, because he came out in public, people knew who he was, and he was like, I have not positioned myself right to like exit community this badly, right? I mean, 15 million is a lot, but like you can be found in today's day and age, basically.
You can definitely be found. So Simona, what do you think the cardinal sin that Chef Nomi committed was? Was it the fact that he didn't announce that he was going to abscond with the funds? Like maybe it was like, maybe if that was the expectation in the beginning, people would have been fine. Or do you think it was just like the very nature of taking such a huge chunk out?
I mean, it literally felt like Thief in the Night. You know what I mean? You kind of go to sleep under one assumption, then you wake up and like your whole house is gone.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
It's that. And obviously, you're not going to say from the beginning, hey, by the way, we're going to get all of this chunk of money in here. And then on day, whatever, 14, I'm going to bounce. Nobody would have done anything. So
on day of all-time high, I'll be out the door. Yeah.
So there's a smorgasbord of sins there that we just like, or rather a sushi buffet of all sorts of interesting sins.
Man, I would kill to be able to go to a sushi buffet right now. But Taylor, so in terms of the work that people do, like in the open source community of Ethereum, like how do we make sure that people who make core contributions, either within like Ethereum itself or like ancillary projects that are part of the Ethereum ecosystem, how do we make sure that people get paid? Because at the end of the day, like people have to put food on the table, people have families and so on.
Yeah, and that's really, I think, the biggest question with all of this. And, going back to like ICOs, that was the promise, right? This is like a new funding mechanism. This is a new format of capital allocation. This is blah, 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 blah. And like, I see a lot of similarities between what we're seeing in DeFi and ICOs because while there is value there somewhere, it's not what's dominating, And so, yes, while ICOs may provide some sort of alternate capital allocation that allows people to get funding in a different way, the majority of the activity that we're seeing is not that, or is not the value isn't being realized on the other end. And so, I've thought a lot about how do you, allocate capital based more, more fairly, I guess. And it's hard, right? It's the same, it's not the same, but there's a similar argument, right? Like, why does, say, a basketball player get paid millions and millions of dollars, and teachers, especially in America, are paid jack shit, right? And there's an argument both ways, right? Well, the basketball player, he is, whether you like it or not, being viewed by millions of people, providing entertainment. It's fun, it's exciting, and the teachers are having, a much greater impact on their students, but the number of students is not they're not impacting millions. And so they're, you know, the same thing with DeFi, same thing anytime we're looking at what's a fair price for something, what's the value for something, and there's no good answer. And so one train of thought, which is very prevalent in this space, is grab as much money as you can and tell everyone what they want to hear and hope for the best, and, you know, take advantage of it, right? If money is cheap, take it. I've never done that, obviously. You know, I'm more of the view of like, you know, what can we do to get the people that are underfunded or underpaid paid? And I think that the things that are going on with DAOs are very, very interesting. The Gitcoin is super, super interesting. The experiments that we're seeing on those fronts are super interesting. And at the end of the day, we're learning a lot, but where we're learning from is, like, we're learning the do nots from the most exciting stuff, and then we're slowly having these, you know, the underlying, the DAOs and the Gitcoins and those types of different things a little bit more slowly. And I do think that we'll get there. Like, this is, you know, these are financial systems. But I
no.
I think
Taylor, we lost you for a second.
Lost her on the stream there.
I know, I lost you guys for a second too. I was just saying that I definitely don't have the answer. I think the best answer is going to be like all of the things, right? What the project is, who the people are. That's going to, you know, determine. And so the more mechanisms you have for funding, and the more opportunities you have, and the more, you know, everything from grants to DAOs to, you know, even like ICOs or like their DeFi yield farming mechanism things, you know, they do have a place and they are valuable for certain projects and people.
Yeah, I think you raised sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like it's like intentions matter a lot. And we know that, right? But then people go and build things without the intention of like, what are we going to do with all this great profit and all this awesome stuff? We're just like, but that's like not a thought, right? It's like, well, we've just made this awesome thing and it makes tons of money. It's like, but where should the money go? Like, what should we do then with that capital allocation? And like, we're just starting to see some things come about, right? Like Bitcoin grants is a great way to funnel money to projects and people who are underserved. And then there's projects like Whaler DAO, which are a great way, new mechanism to, you know, spur action that goes directly to organizations and projects that are doing stuff on the ground that we need done, that, you know, we as humans are essential to us. So it's like, we need to think more about intentions, like take it to a higher level. Like engineering is great, it can do so much for us, but let's step up and say like, okay, cool, what are we going to do all these great engineering efforts and all these amazing builders? Like, what will we build that serves people?
That's a very good point, but I think, again, we're coming off the back of just being indoctrinated that everybody's in it for themselves. If you win, somebody else loses. And this is what the system so far has taught us. Not crypto, obviously. The old, shitty one we want to get rid of. And I think redesigning all of these things and actually going, hey, that's in my power to go and push this forward, right? Not as we had it up until now, which is like, well, I'd love to, but there's no way that I can do it. So might as well go on holiday and piss off real quick. It's a re-education and it's an unlearning of instincts that we just have been taught of, in it for yourself, and that's it.
It's true.
But don't you think?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No. I'm thinking, you know, like if some of these new projects are, you know, largely Ponzi's, then like a lot of people here are like very much in it for themselves and only themselves. And if you don't believe that a lot of people are actually losing from these new schemes, then, you know, I got news for you. You know, these people are not wanting a better world or anything. They just want easy gains on whatever meme coin. I have farmed as well, but at some point you realize that, you know, like you reach a point where, you know, that one is actually like this particular project is actually a Ponzi, or you know, these guys said, hey, I'm not building a Ponzi, but actually he left with 15 mil. So honestly, like everyone is in it for themselves. You can see it on their messages, you can see it on the way that they trade and on the way that they don't care about anything else than gains.
Yeah, I think it's like a big thing with this too is the whole anonymity aspect, because a part of, crypto culture is this aspect of like privacy stuff, but that also leads to making it easy for people to behave in certain ways that they wouldn't if they weren't anonymous. So it's an interesting sort of balance we have to do, and it kind of leads us into that whole discussion about, people's behaviors online culturally when they have the ability to stay anonymous, not have to deal with repercussions of like, other human beings. And, there's also this idea in like crypto of like, trust no one, and, everything should be trustless, this and sort of that. So there's parts of the culture there that do have that in that. And then there's the other side of it, which is really like the community empowerment, community first, like, everything going on in the DAO space, which it's not really about getting rid of trust, but lowering the barrier to trust, where, these DAOs allow me to make it easier for me to trust random strangers on the internet that I normally wouldn't have trusted otherwise. So yeah, I think there's a lot of like conflicting ideals or values in the crypto community, and it'll be interesting to see how it fleshes out, kind of from like the old like cypherpunk, like hardcore Bitcoin, run your own node type people, and then like the new like Ethereum, like community driven, like unicorn type people. Yeah.
The ones that are like the sex orgy parties at the conferences, the ones that I talked about on Twitter. Still waiting for my invite.
I know. Like,
yeah, I've only
giving, by the way, like it always pops up at the worst time. On the note though, I was gonna say that like I think crypto has a very conflicted relationship with the anonymous and the privacy, and where the value stems from. And I do want to like just make it clear that identity and reputation are very, very closely intertwined, but they're not necessarily always reliant on each other. And there are some very prominent people in this space that you don't know where they live and you don't know what their real names are. And even if you tried to dox them, you probably wouldn't be able to. But they still have a massive reputation. And so even though you don't know where their home address is and you don't know their real name, and in some cases you don't even realize that that's not their real name, they still have something at stake if they were to, say, spin up a farming thing and then exit scam with it. Their reputation would be at stake. And so I think that a lot of times we conflate the two, right? We say, okay, well, no one knows who Satoshi was, therefore this sushi chef can just, I'll give him all my money and he won't do anything wrong. But the reality is like, one, Satoshi is an anomaly, and like we should not trust that anyone's going to be Satoshi 2.0. Like that's absurd. But two is what do they have at stake? And if it's an anonymous cartoon character avatar that's a single Twitter personality, and if you say what happens if they exit scam and the answer is nothing, it doesn't matter if they have an identity or not. It doesn't matter what their avatar is. If they can walk away with all the money and get and have no repercussions, then they will walk away with all the money. It just, that's how the world works.
And for us to allow that to be a possibility, right? And to go into these things knowing that like, oh, it's a meme avatar, right? Who's behind a lot of these things. And they've been working for a week and now we've like moved massive liquidity into an account. That's just foolish, right? And like following the herd into things like that expose us to vulnerability and ridiculous schemes is just, the blind leading the blind. It comes back once again to intentions, right? Satoshi was around for a while doing stuff, writing his paper, talking to people, having conversations. People that knew him didn't know who he was, but they could get a feel for him, right? They could feel the passion and they could feel the motivation. They're like, this guy wants to like turn shit upside down. And like, I have those same conversations with people now, and I can tell, right, who's aligned and who's on board, who wants to change things. And then I talk to like other people and I'm like, oh, got it. You're trying to like, you're trying to like pump the bags. And those are not the people I want to work with. They're not the people I want to hang out with. Like those aren't the people that are in the inner circle invited to the orgy parties. But there's a big difference, right? And so like intentions matter, and historical track record, even if you're anonymous, matters. Like it doesn't matter if you're not a real person and you go to conferences and stuff. If you're showing up and you're doing things and making contributions, people can rely on those contributions historically. Then there's a lot better beginning formation of trust.
Yeah, I think one of the main issues is that we live in a capitalistic society where our value is determined by the amount that corporations can monetize off of us. So Taylor, to your specific example of why does an NBA player make millions of dollars a year versus a teacher, answer is simple. There's like sponsorship, there's merch, there's like pay-per-view, whatever. Cynthia Nixon, the actress, actually wrote a New York Times op-ed piece on this very subject, which I thought was super compelling. So she's like slowly going back to work in New York. They're like film sets. They have like incredible like precautions that are taken on the film sets. Like everyone has to be tested every day, like every member of the crew. There's like everything is like wiped down multiple times a day. And she was contrasting that level of care with the amount of care in this time of COVID that her son in a New York public school was going through, where it was like, okay, I guess, not everyone has to be tested if they don't want to. And we also don't have resources to like sanitize everything, but hey, everyone go back to school. And she's like, this is like a real shame. Like what I do for society is like, yes, entertainment, like the arts are important, but like my specific project is not going to make or break the state of the arts in the United States or worldwide. Whereas like how something functions at one school has very, very real results and potentially ripple effects across like the families of thousands, if not like hundreds of thousands or millions of families that live in New York City. So very, very sobering kind of point. And that's one of the things that drew me to crypto to begin with, where it's like, even today, like as some of you have alluded to, in our crypto world, we have this like capitalist mindset, one of scarcity, one where we're trying to like make out like a bandit, what's in it for us. That's like highly transactional. What would be really fascinating to me is how do we construct a new kind of system in which value accrues to different individuals in different ways? And how does that rebalance the power dynamic that currently exists today?
Yeah. Just a quick note on that, like in terms of like the NBA players and stuff, it's basically like, I feel like it's about how replaceable you are. So it doesn't matter the value you actually create. How much you get paid is how easy can I find someone else to for that smaller amount of money. NBA players, it's really hard to replace an NBA player with another one, so they get paid a lot. Teachers, even though they provide infinitely more value to society, it's easier to find another teacher that they can pay really shit wages to, and in that way. And the people that make money aren't great value. They're kind of the intersection of transactions. So investment bankers, how much value do they really provide to society? But they make a shit ton of money. And that's because they sit at that intersection transaction happen. And you start to see a lot of similar things. We are in many ways recreating a lot of the same systems, and it takes real intention to try to get away from that. Because where history repeats itself, and we're bound to start to just do the same things over and over again, and we have to really be intentional about it. But yeah, I think like we should move on to the main topic now, which is what I want to talk about most. So yeah, I guess either you can introduce the main topic, give an overview, and then jump into it.
I'm gonna let Liz go for it because
okay, all right. So the reason why we've brought all of our wonderful guests here today is to talk about the issue of community in a decentralized context. And especially in 2020, there are a lot of things I think have not really gone according to plan. The world is in turmoil. A lot of people have a lot more emotional overhead. I think that comes from their personal lives and their professional lives. So in this kind of challenging environment, how can we continue to build upon the decentralized vision that I think all of us here share? MP, have there been things that have like worked well for you? Some things that you found especially difficult?
Well, this year, I think it has been especially challenging for all of us. Back then we used to all meet at least once a year or so in conferences. So we actually know who we were talking to. And let's face it, shit people have been all over the internet for since the start of the internet, and we have had to deal with a lot of angry mobs throughout, especially like the people that have been in blockchain, like uh, like us for a while. We have had to deal with drama several times, but for every single one of those dramas, there's probably an amazing group of people that you actually get to see, once a year or whatever, and then it makes it all worthwhile. I think this year is especially challenging because we have all like just migrated online, and we are really trying to keep genuine and keep this community, keep on building. However, the community, of course, changes, and it changes with every project, and it changes with every trend. And right now, the main trend is actually, to get, uh, to like do some farming or some trading, which is super fun. I do it as well. But alongside with this, and I actually have not really delved into the provenance of all of these, just because I'm quite new and I didn't have time, but I realized that a lot of my friends in the space were intimidated. And when I started seeing the tweets, it was like, like a new culture had come into our culture and just appropriated it, and that's fine. It's completely fine as long as you don't intimidate the shit out of me and I can't participate of my community any longer, because
Mhm.
that's when you have to draw the line. So really, the things that have been working out for me before are not working right now, and are probably need to be reworked, and I'm gonna need to think of my assumptions and think of how I grow community as well, and how I do it responsibly, because my practices are no longer valid. So maybe Taylor or Simone have actually better insights.
I mean, I kind of echoed this, and I think it feels like, again, it's kind of happened very, very quickly. And it's evolved very quickly from where we were, let's say, at ETH Denver, maybe CC at the beginning of the year. And then suddenly we're in September of 2020. All of this stuff has happened, plus this whole new generation of community with its own dynamics, with its own pluses and minuses. And it feels like we've almost been watching it from afar rather than being involved in it, which is never what it felt like. Because, like you say, as a community, we used to come together at all of these different events. We used to have a lot of relationships that were, at the end of the day, between actual individuals, right? We were very much in meet space and having those interactions and having those friendships at the end of the day that have evolved over these past 3 years, 3-4 years for people. And so I think the stark difference between that type of vibe and what we're seeing now, with all of the things that you've highlighted in your tweet, and then Francie, snapshotted some of the reactions to what you tweeted about the different discourses that are happening in these communities, is very, like, it's jarring, where you think, hold on a second, we just never used to have to deal with this. And again, from this perspective of, nobody is saying that Ethereum is going to make everybody nice and everybody good, and like, that is not the expectation. But the expectation maybe is that we continue treating each other with respect, deference, maybe making that environment a pleasant environment to be in, versus something that's a little bit, again, jarring and very much not in line with the things that I am into, things that the way I communicate. And again, absolutely nobody is saying that everybody should be a homogenous blob in the shape of a diamond, right? The Ethereum diamond. Nobody is saying that at all. But what we're saying is, just because we've moved everything online doesn't mean you forget your fucking manners, pardon my French, or the fact that you shouldn't maybe, share garbage on a public forum just because it's almost like, you know, a gold rush situation. And everybody is maybe anonymous. Everybody's like, you know, this is Terra Nova, so we can just do whatever the hell we want, which again, totally fine. But keep those dynamics of social interaction alive online as well. Like, don't leave them at the door.
So something I think MP had tweeted about, or maybe it was like someone else on this call, was around like the sexism that appears in like DeFi memes. And I've definitely noticed it. I'm sure like some people have like noticed it on this call. Obviously, I think memes are like a really good vehicle for communicating like a message, and they can like bind a community together. But I've definitely noticed a lot of memes, especially in DeFi, that I think are like anti-women and kind of degrading to women. And I like always struggle with like, what is the appropriate measure to take? Like, should I like call out an individual? It's like whack-a-mole. Like another person's going to post a meme with something like gross about women. Like, how do we like deal with this cultural aspect of Ethereum?
I mean, not that I'm the expert of commenting, but I do think also it's like a collaborative effort too. Like, the men in this space need to support the women in this space and ensure that like we don't like retweet or share that garbagey stuff, right? It's like, and just like make that culture like strong, right? Because we create that culture together as like both from the masculine side and the feminine side. Like, I agree. There's a bunch of like, I mean, I guess I don't see so much of it because I don't spend time in places where those things happen. I immediately exit from.
You and I, Taylor, we had a conversation about this, like, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? And you were like, I don't see them because, I mean, I don't hang out with these people, so I have no idea.
Yeah, like, I mean...
I think, like, with, like, the men in the community, it's, like, it's easy for us to just say that, like, this is not our problem, or, like, you know, just to not comment on it because it's, like, uncomfortable for us to talk about, or, like, you know, I don't want to fight this battle. I want to leave in because like I don't want to. It's almost like a cop out where they're like trying to be pro women by not commenting on the issue. So I think it is important for people who are leaders in the space, like you know you mentioned Maria, that it's important for them to call these things out directly, not just not engage them, but actively take action and you know signal that this isn't appropriate and this isn't welcome in the space, because the leaders are often the people that you know influence their communities and influence a lot of the culture too. And yeah, like in general, like it's been getting a lot more 4chan DeFi, and it wasn't like that during the bear market. You know, it's only happening now more so. So I think it's more so it's a reflection really of the type of people that have come into the space now that you know it's for the money and all this stuff. And yeah, I think too it's like the anonymity aspect is an important one too. It's really easy to do whatever you want without having to be rid of others when no one knows who you are, no one can call you out.
I think one other thing that's important to comment on is like there's trolls who are identified as trolls. Like we've got like the Udis in the world, right? Where we're like, okay, you're like you're a valuable person adding interesting things, but also trolling, right? But like you have your real reputation. And then you've got like hordes of like anon trolls who can just like, they can kind of demoralize people and they can just say little nasty things. And like, I mean, if people were saying nasty things or making like horror memes that reflected badly on me, I would internalize that stuff too. That wouldn't make me feel good. It also wouldn't make me want to bring my friends into this space, right? So if we're talking about like sexist memes and this kind of stuff, like that's just setting a really bad example for like what we want to foster, which is like diversity and culture and like respect, like all these kind of things.
You know what?
All right,
So
yeah, I was just gonna say let's turn it over to the women and hear what they have to say.
All right, I'll hop in for a second because I think there's a couple really interesting points that were brought up that I kind of want to like circle back around on. One is this: I think we've all seen the 4chan has escaped 4chan. 4chan has why isn't it? Okay, I want to say, I think MP, I don't know if I might be speaking for you, but I'm pretty sure, like, I'll say this. I'm pretty sure everyone here has spent time on 4chan in our darker moments or days and enjoyed it momentarily before you're like, ooh, let me go shower and get the fuck out of here, right? 4chan and the anonymous, where you can speak freely and be degenerate and be gross and be sort of like have these terrible things thrown at you, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go back to the world that I want to live in, and this was a good reminder of why I don't live here. That, like, 4chan has always been valuable. It's been gross, it's been a lot of things, but it has been valuable. But one of the most valuable things about it is that it stays there, right? And like sometimes they venture out and they raid the hotel and they do the things and they disrupt the world, you know, and then they go back there. And the thing is that a lot of times we do talk about 4chan as like, it's them. Okay, let's be real. Like, who is they? Are they really that different of a demographic than us, right? No, it's just that we put on our good faces when you have a reputation at stake, and when the reputation is not at stake, it's the worst of all of us. And yes, there is really the majority of the difference comes down to culture and what you put out there. So the biggest issue that I see in the space that's happening right now is the fact that somehow it's been acceptable for the 4chan culture and thoughts and memes and everything that 4chan is to come onto Twitter and to come into Reddit and to come into my daily life, when it should be something that when I feel like I want to play that game, right? What I want to do is before I take a long shower, I can go there. But it's not my day-to-day life, and it's not anyone's day-to-day life, and it's certainly not what's presented to newcomers to this space who aren't on 4chan. And so that's one really, really interesting thing that I've been noticing. And the other thing about that is, why is it that those ideas and those memes and those people and those attitudes are so prevalent, right? Why am I seeing them on my feed? And that is, the best way I can put it is this. Twitter is very different in the fact that you follow these circles, and the way that you get information, you build your list, and the information that you see is like a very distinct combination, but that combination of sources is primarily time-based. Like, that's the biggest thing, right? You don't ever see a tweet that's like 2 days old. Where previously on forums and on Reddit especially, like Reddit was literally created to stop time, right? Time is one factor, but the votes, right? Reddit was remarkable because of that. And so that plus the fact that this space has so many financial ulterior motives, and the potential to make money, like the actual potential to make money, has created a environment where the people who do the least amount of work have the biggest voice and the biggest reach. And like, just think about that for a second, right? The people that are scamming you because they're not actually building something have the ability to sit on Twitter and build their reach way more than me. Like, I haven't even been on Twitter in 2 weeks because it was mentally exhausting, and I have a daughter and I have a company and COVID and like just everything. I said I need to cut something and I cut Twitter, right? Because I have these other things. Yet in that time, 4 or 5 different anon people made millions of dollars because they had the time and ability to sit there, because they don't have a company that they're actually running. They don't have a team. They don't have payroll. They don't have taxes. They don't have anything, right? Their only thing is to build an audience to schlep their bags to, right? And then the hordes of people are incentivized not necessarily to share the vision for the better future, not necessarily to build a better future. They are incentivized to not lose more money, right? So once that price starts going down, if I can tweet and reply to 5 influencer accounts, and that's going to reach 20,000 noobs who are desperate and want to make money, I'm financially incentivized to do that. Even if I've already lost money, I haven't lost as much money. And we saw this with the hacks as well. Like, when the smart contract would be hacked and they would turn it back on the next day. Why would anyone do that? Well, because all the bag holders are like, turn it back on because that's my best shot to unload my bag. If you keep it off though, I know I'm gonna lose money. That's a guaranteed lose money. And that this combination of stuff is really fascinating. Like I hope there's some crazy social studies, anthropology people studying this, because it is a wealth of information about human nature and incentives and how social constructs and like the information sharing and those mash up with like financial, because the actions and the people and the culture is very, very, very much shaped by the finances. And then you add the memes and you hide it all and you put it behind an anon dog, and here we are. Welcome to crypto.
You know, I actually like this. I actually like anonymity, and I actually like. I'm not so against all this yield farming thing, because let's face it, the world has been through a crisis, and a lot of people in the U.S. have lost a lot. So you know, the world is ripe with unemployment. So you know, if these particular incentive schemes can help someone not lose their houses, I'm completely up for it. You know, if they want to be on 4chan, I'm completely up for it. If they want to come to Twitter, I'm completely up for it as well. But I think that we are actually like, they are actually, you know, playing with other people that are, you know, just very sheepy, and this creates some kind of like overwhelming wave of like unacceptable behavior, or not even unacceptable, let's say a social, that is actually commended. So you know, like, it is a fascinating experiment, but then again, we are part of this experiment as well, and I have to work every day, and all of us have to, and we shouldn't have to take breaks of our work just because, you know, these people are a little bit exacerbated by all these movements. So I'm very conflicted right now, because I want to help them, but at the same time, it's great, we all make money, we all win, but yeah, where does it stop? You know, where can we actually, you know, before all of these, you know, yeah, the DAO hack happened, the parity hacks happened, but then there was a time to sit down and reflect and say, where do we go from here? I don't see this happening with this yield farming thing. So, you know, maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
You're not wrong. Okay, I wanna just, so Chris Black just tweeted this, and I want to bring this in.
I was just gonna say.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this in because
I like how we're tweeting.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Oh, I feel I should have been on this stream, and I'm like, well, share it here, and then we'll tackle it. So yeah, go ahead, Taylor. You read it out.
Yeah, it is. I want to say that it's like very much, it's like in a tangent with MP, and so we're gonna share it, and then maybe we'll comment on both MP and him, because they're very much like there's this conflict, right? So he says, this is Chris Black on Twitter, you can't control the uncontrollable. This community is amorphous, leaderless, gelatinous, whatever you want to call it. You can't work under the delusion that you can control who uses DeFi and what they use it for. You need to create your own personal filters. And I think this it's right. This is like the
He's just trying to get followers, and he just mansplained to me an hour ago exactly the same thing. So what the fuck is he talking about? He's just trying to get followers here. So all right.
Let me try to hold on. Okay. So the endless debate, and I'm up all on this all the time, right? Is this excuse that like, you can't, Taylor, you are not my mother. You cannot control what I do with my money. If I want to be degenerate, I'm going to be degenerate. Stop trying to control me. And my answer to that is always like, bro, I don't care what you do with your money. I care that I provide a reality check, because you have a reach. Your single tweet has 100,000 impressions. Who are those 100,000 people? You don't know. You're tweeting out like this is a flawless, gonna make you millions of dollars scheme, and none of the replies are arguing that. So when I reply on Twitter, I am providing the other half of the story that you're not providing. It doesn't mean that I want to control you. It does not mean that I want to shut down DeFi. It doesn't mean that I hate DeFi. It doesn't mean that I don't farm in my free time. What it means is that with the social constructs that we have, which is primarily Twitter, and with the culture that we've built, I, just like you, have the ability to say things so that everyone that's reading it gets both sides, right? And I'm going to push towards my way, and you're going to push towards your way, and we're going to land in the middle. And that's how it should be. Because honestly, if this whole community was me and thought like me, we wouldn't be here building anything. We'd be sitting in the corner scared of how everything is going to be hacked and there would be no smart contracts. We can't all be me. However, I'm going to be me. I'm going to provide my perspective, because for every me, there's like 20 frogs telling you that, go throw all your money in here, you're going to be rich. And you're not. Just FYI, don't do that. And that's how it works. And it's not about the personal, right? It's not about like, oh, Taylor, you need to create personal bubbles so that you don't see it. That's not what this is about. Like, I don't have an issue. I do have an issue recently. That's why I took a break from Twitter. But in general, the problem is not me personally. I don't want to engage. The problem is we have created this community of people, and the people are being like, every person that joins is gonna be the culture that is, and it's gonna shift and it's gonna morph a little bit. But every step that we take towards the darker side, we're gonna attract more people that are towards that darker side, and it's gonna keep going like that, right? We have to have the balance so that we land somewhere in the middle and hopefully move towards the place that's the most beneficial place for society, for this community, for the new financial future. Not whatever, the losing everyone's money because everyone exit scams and that's acceptable.
I just have one thing to add, and basically, like here, people are actually conflating censorship resistance with DeFi, with whatever I said on the internet that was not acceptable for them. First of all, to label this as me trying to censor them and them being censorship resistant is ignorant at best, and I don't know what at worst. Because being censorship resistant is actually something else. It's something different, and it's something that we're actually building for. I'm here in the space because I hate censorship. I'm not here in the space to censor them. But they think that actually disrespecting everyone and being little shits for personal gains or followers, which is sadder, is actually being censorship resistant. It's not. You have to look it up. You have to learn what it means to actually build some anti-fragile and censorship resistant systems, or you need to shut up. Sorry, but for your own sake, I'm not going to shut you up.
I think as well, it's what's come out of both what MP and Taylor have kind of said, and very much what we're chatting about here is a plurality of viewpoints. And again, nobody is saying that people need to stop doing what they're doing or cancel this or stop that. The idea here is that we should have a much more balanced discourse. The same way as Taylor says, right, you're telling me that you're gonna get me rich, but here's the other stuff that you should know. People sharing all of these memes that are, not necessarily we would, I don't know, not necessarily things that I'm interested in and not necessarily things that I want to see, does not mean that I'm not into memes. It's this whole thing of like, you're either in it to this extreme or you're not into it at all. Shut up or get out, or you can't handle it. And it's this type of very, very extreme, like, no, it's either like this or not at all. That's just not realistic. And I think I mentioned it in a tweet as well. You have all sorts of nuances in real life, right? You have dynamics and you have things that ebb and flow. You don't just have black and white and this is how it is, and you're either in this camp or you're in that camp. And also, with my work, I tend to interact with a lot of people who are not of the ecosystem, and I'm trying to chat to them about crypto and the benefits of blockchain. And then I bring them in here, and then it's kind of like to a room with, posters of like naked women and all sorts of mess everywhere, and go, hey, welcome, this is going to change everything and make everything better. I want to be able to have these conversations without people mentioning the fact that there's all of this crap in the industry that I work in. And I'm trying to be, showcase it as, again, a promise for something better. Get them to create partnerships with us, do pilots, look at all sorts of different dynamics of how we might actually redesign stuff, not just sit and like share memes. It just comes with the territory. You want to have a nice kind of place that you are bringing people into.
I also, yeah, I think all of you are right on the money. And I actually disagree with Chris in his premise that a community online is like leaderless and rudderless and gelatinous and whatever myriad of adjectives he used. That's why, like, on online communities, they have codes of conduct, right? It's like, hey, these are like the general like roles by which you have to play nice to become like a functioning and contributing member to this community. If you don't abide by these roles, I'm sorry, but this is not the place for you. Maybe there is another place for you, namely 4chan or other communities. I think that's an easy way to kind of absolve yourself of the moral responsibility to be a positive contributor in whatever space it is that you happen to inhabit, whether it's like meat space, like your actual civic duty to the community, or your duty to the online community that you're a part of. And for all of us here, it is Ethereum. So yes, it's true. There's no centralized, like, it's not a corporation where like HR is going to come after you for like posting a bad meme that's around DeFi. But I would say that your like obligations actually on a more higher level. It's like, hey, don't you want to curate a space that is literally going to change the world? And to do that, it can't be something that just appeals to like your Gen Z bros. It needs to be a space in which everyone can kind of feel like welcome, regardless of like what generation they're from. I see a lot of like boomer jokes. I'm like, okay, I think it's easy, like when there isn't a lot of that exposure maybe on Twitter, to like fall into that trap, but maybe we shouldn't do it because that literally excludes an entire generation. Similarly, if everyone around you is like young and male, and these are the kinds of like jokes that you have like in your group chat with your friends, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I actually did forget there's other people outside of my group of friends who are like looking at my Twitter, and my influence is actually much greater than just one group chat. So I think all of us really have a collective responsibility to, if we truly believe in this mission and we're not just trying to like have a laugh or like, like make out like a bandit because of DeFi, it's our responsibility to do better, I think, in terms of cultivating the community.
Yeah, and on that subject, like one of the reasons, like I think a lot of people when I tweet things, I've seen the responses to MP recently, they often are like, okay, what do we do about it? Like, if you're telling me that what I'm saying is wrong, then therefore you're saying that I should go hide in the corner and never tweet again or never have a viewpoint. And I want to be clear, like the only mechanisms we have for this community is the back and forth between people. Like that's all we have. So when I tell you something like I don't agree with you, or you're wrong, or you're sexist, that's not me saying like go hide in a corner. That's me rebutting what you have said, and you have every right to tell me that I'm wrong, right? Like this is how it works, and this is how the culture is shaped. And why I think it's so important that every individual shares what they want to see in the future and what their best version of the community is, and they encourage it and they're loud about it and they talk about it and they lead by example, is because it's just human nature that like is gonna attract like. So if we have a community of a certain type of people interested in certain things and thinking a certain way, that's going to most readily attract those similar attitudes and the similar people and similar culture. If we want more women in the space, the easiest way to do it, the fastest way to do it, is to get more women in the space. Like it just that's how it happens, right? And women is an easy example, but it applies to everything. It applies to where you're from, it applies to how you think, it applies to where you grew up, or the circumstances under which you grew up. All of these things, whatever is currently in the community is going to attract what is outside of the community. And that's why I think it's important to have a diverse like group of people inside and diverse ideas and talk about them openly and have open constructive disagreements. because that's the only way that we're going to improve. And that's the way that we can attract a diverse, critically thinking, curious, like all of the things that we want to make a robust and anti-fragile system. Like the thing inside needs to be diverse. And again, back to like, if everyone was Taylor, we'd be screwed. Really, if everyone was me, we'd be screwed. We have to disagree. We just need to get better at it.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's like when there isn't that space to have a dialogue, extreme opinions can form. And MP, maybe this may resonate you because you live in Berlin, but when I was living in Berlin a couple of years ago, there was like the rise of the alt-right and populism within Germany. And my theory is that the reason why this happened is because there was this enormous guilt that I think Germany was carrying from the aftermath of the Holocaust and World War II. And there was this enormous pressure to be like politically correct in public and being like, yes, all immigrants come in. Yes, all refugees come in. Yes, no, we don't have a problem with that because we're not racist. And there wasn't that space for a middle ground, which is why things started to happen on the fringe. And that's kind of like an extreme example, but I definitely see that in crypto today. It's like, yes, it's okay to disagree. Doesn't mean that I hate you on a personal level. That's normal. Let's hash it out. So for our lovely guests that are on the show, what's one call to action that you would like for the community at large to help just like elevate and uplift the community? What would be like a suggestion for how we can move forward? We can start with MP.
Well, I would basically like to ask those that are here just, farming likes and followers to think for themselves and to be able to, not like appeal to these nons, because in the end, if they're here for the long run, as well as I am, then we should learn to cooperate and we should be welcoming. If the space shrinks because there's hostility, then we all lose. So like, if you don't do it because you have a wife or a mother or whatever, do it for the fucking money, dude.
Cool. And what do you think, Taylor?
So I think that it's very easy, especially on Twitter, to fall into the trap of, and I've fallen in the trap of tweeting the hottest, spiciest thing because the amount of likes and retweets and engagement that you get feels so freaking good. It does, right? But realize that what you put out there and the value that your commentary has, you should be putting what you want the community to be, right? You should be thinking about, like, if 10 people were to enter this space and were to be literal clones of me, would that be better or worse? And if you think about sort of the impact that your voice has, which it does have an impact, like this space is very, very small and every voice does have an impact, you do start to realize that this isn't about me gaining popularity or me getting likes or me checking my replies. This is about what is the culture that I want to build and what are the, newcomers to the space. What should they think and what should they know? And when I entered this space, the mantra, the thing that was drilled into me, the thing that I still struggle to understand why and how it got lost, because it was so huge, was the, like, don't trust, verify. Everyone is out to get you. The world is evil. You can't trust anyone. Don't trust anyone. Verify everything, right? It's a lot of people don't realize it. It's not here. If you entered the space 2017 and on, you were not. That wasn't a thing that you saw. And that's the type of stuff where, what do I want a newcomer to know, right? What do I want a newcomer to learn? What's the philosophies and the ideologies that newcomers should have? And for me, I think the biggest one is not necessarily a specific philosophy, but like, be curious and be skeptical and be questioning and be seeking out knowledge. And how can we get people to do that? Not necessarily that they should believe this or that they shouldn't do this, but if everyone questioned more, we would be in a better spot. And that's what I want to encourage. But my call to action for everyone else is like, figure out what you want to encourage and then fucking encourage it. That's it.
Yeah, that's very well put, Taylor. And what about you, Simona? If you had like one call to action, if you could beseech the community to do one thing or change one thing, what would it be?
Beseech. I love that word. I haven't heard it in a while. I want to pull from, when you learn to ride a bike or to drive a car, you get this instruction of look where you're going. You have to look at the road ahead versus when you turn a corner, you look where you're going versus doing like just the curb. And I think acting and speaking and doing anything that you do with that in mind, where is it that you are going? You yourself, and also where do you see this technology, this ecosystem that we're all contributing to, where is it going? I, for one, feel a great deal of responsibility for those new users and for the people who I interact with and for all the new projects that are coming up and who for in whatever dynamic I get to speak to or I get to share the things that I've learned with. It's where do I want to see this going? Do I want it to die on the edges of the internet? Personally, no. I want it to become something that is genuinely along the lines of empowerment, along the lines of opening up opportunity for everyone, not the select few. And so, whatever I do is with that in mind. And so, if I want to, I don't know, share something, I will do it with that in mind. And this absolutely does not mean that people should not freely express themselves, but do so with some sort of where are you going in mind. And maybe just literally be more mindful when you do it. Of others, of what you want, of where you are going, what you feel your contribution is. But again, for that might be for the people in for the long haul, and I genuinely hope that there's a whole bunch of us, not again a small group that just powers through years of all of this. Yeah, that's kind of it. Look where you're going.
Yeah, I liked that analogy, Simona. I'm probably going to use that going forward. But yeah, something that just like I think definitely is a bull market thing is like people just being concerned about like me, myself, and I. Sometimes I'm just like, this is crazy. Maybe try thinking about like someone outside of like yourself for 1 second and the ramifications of your post or your tweet and what that adds to the overall mix of the community. So everyone, unfortunately, we are at time. I have really greatly enjoyed this discussion with our guests today. So that was MP, Simona, and Taylor. Hope to see you guys, gals, on a future show. And really, really appreciate you tuning in. And thanks to all of our viewers as well.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate y'all being here.
Bye, guys.
Bye.